Okay, so we just got back from watching Spider-Man No Way Home, and obviously we got to talk about it. You can't go see this movie and not discuss it with somebody. It was a spiritual, religious experience that I have to talk about. Warning before we get into it. Spoilers. This is a spoiler-filled review. I will have a separate non-spoiler review up around the same time as this video. So if you don't want to be spoiled the movie, you have not seen it yet, click away. This is your final warning. Go check out the other one. And let's go.
I mean, let's be honest, though. Like, it's really hard to talk about this movie without spoiling.
It's going to be really hard to do.
Just because there's, like, the trailers... I'm sorry. Whoever's editing those trailers did a masterful job to not reveal some of the major points of that movie.
Oh yeah.
It was insane. Now, some of it we kind of grasped, like with Lizard's head getting kicked. We were like, somebody's kicking his
right.
head.
That and honestly, that was a mistake because that was only in like
Brazil.
the Brazil trailers.
Brazil.
So that was a mistake on their part. But you know, it's like what they did when they did some misdirecting with the Infinity War trailer with like Hulk in the trailer and stuff, but like turned up to 11.
Yeah, or even the Civil War trailer when they originally cut out Spider-Man from the walking scene.
That too.
Like the whole Wong not telling Strange to do this.
I was expecting that in there, and it didn't happen.
He was more or less just chill with it. Like,
he was like, I hold no... what you do, not my problem.
It makes sense, though, because like even Wong can probably understand where Peter's coming from, wanting this very simple request, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and can we just take a second to, like... Wong's Sorcerer Supreme.
That is just so lightly dropped, but it makes sense because Strange had been dead for 5 years.
Yeah. We need a new Sorcerer Supreme.
No one ever picked up on that.
Yeah.
And now all I can think about is the Sorcerer Supreme is with Abomination fixing cage fights.
Yep. On his ass.
While working with the Avengers to try to kind of keep Earth protected from every... Oh, Shang-Chi, you want to be an Avenger now? Don't mind me, just Sorcerer Supreme.
Man, Sorcerer Supreme is fixing fights with Abomination. That's just wild to me. Like
that is just so casually dropped. But it all makes sense.
And Strange is just like whatever.
I have to listen to him now. He's my boss.
Like there was just a thing. I had to go ahead and talk about that.
But us immediately picking up from Far From Home was really good. You know because this movie just does not waste your time. The entire experience, despite it being a 2.5 hour movie. The pacing is amazing.
Yes.
And we literally pick up right from the end of Far From Home.
I would agree.
Literally the exact second when the movie ends.
I would agree. The pacing, like, you know, we talked about I don't even dislike the Eternals, but the Eternals was kind of a slow movie. Yeah. I don't think that could really be denied by anybody. Like, whether you like it or dislike it, it was kind of a slow movie. And then on the opposite side is Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Its pacing was way too fast. Before you knew it, we were at the climax, and it was like, oh shit, we're already here? Like,
it was crazy, really. Like,
this had perfect pacing. Yes. And if not perfect, damn near it. Like, the only other movie in the Marvel Universe I think I can say had equally good pacing was Infinity War.
Agree. Infinity War's pacing was amazing.
Just to sum it up, I'm just going to go ahead and put on fact that this is my favorite superhero movie of all time currently.
I agree with that, and sure, that could change as time goes by and I digest it, because you know you always have the post-movie hype with a movie you're excited for. When I walked out of every sequel Star Wars movie, I thought it was better than I do now.
Right.
You know, so that could change, but I have a good feeling that it won't. This movie, it's very rare, and we talked about this on the ride home, it's very rare that you go into a movie with such unrealistically high expectations, and those expectations are met and exceeded.
If this is not the best comic book movie, then it's damn well second. Like, and even then, whatever would beat it, it would be very close.
And no matter where you put it, it's high on the list.
It has to
and
be.
And no matter what you put above it, it's debatable.
It's very debatable. There was nothing... Listen, there's a couple of nitpicks, but that's it.
Like, I have... My favorite superhero movies, and comic book movies in general, like, they all tend to jump around depending on what mood I'm in any given day of the week. But, you know, they always tend to be pretty consistent. It's always been, like, Civil War, Infinity War, The Dark Knight, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and, you know, those kinds of movies. Maybe Spider-Man 2. But this movie, I mean, all of them, move them all down. Yeah. You know, because, like,
We have a new game.
Zack Snyder's Justice League was the best superhero movie up to today that I had seen this year.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man just beat it. I just it's so hard to process
Still
this
taking
movie
it all in.
because I mean I felt like crippled after the movie. I felt like I couldn't move.
This movie makes you feel such a wide array of emotions.
God.
And it's like we said earlier, the pacing is so well, and when we hit these huge emotional moments, they hit so well.
Mm-hmm.
They hit hard.
Oh man, those emotional moments, they really hit.
And I mean, since this is a spoilery review, we're gonna get to those emotional moments. But like you said, it picks up right where Far From Home left off, like exactly where Far From Home left off. Like we even get some bleed over.
Yeah.
You know, his identity's revealed, and then we see exactly what happened afterwards. Him saying "what the fuck" was not cut. It was simply, you know, car horned out. Like
That was the best.
Can't drop the F-bomb. We can say shit though.
we can say shit, and Strange says, "Let's Scooby-Doo this shit," which sounded way better than
So much better
"Let's
than crap.
Scooby-Doo this crap."
Yeah.
You know,
It sounded way better.
it still sounded a little silly.
But it does sound better with
But it was easier to digest
Yes.
than "Let's Scooby-Doo this crap."
Yeah.
Doctor Strange, and I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about Doctor Strange in this movie, but like I wasn't sure what kind of role he was going to play in the film. You know, I was like, are they really just going to throw Doctor Strange like into the beginning and that's going to be it? You know, what all is it going to entail? But Doctor Strange was a big portion of the movie,
Yes.
and he never
didn't overstay his
detracted.
welcome. Yeah.
Exactly, he didn't overstay his welcome. He never detracted focus. He was in this movie more than Tony was in Homecoming, wasn't
Yeah.
he?
Yeah.
And I do like how they wrote him out, where it was just like,
However, his time in the movie I felt was better managed
yes.
than
Yeah,
Tony's time in Homecoming. Because Tony in Homecoming did from time to time sort of steal focus from
Yeah.
Peter, and Strange never did that, not
No.
once.
No. Even when Strange is throwing Spider-Man into the mirror dimension, you know, we're getting almost a peak Spider-Man. He's fighting back legitimately too. When he takes him over to the Grand Canyon, and Peter basically uses math and geometry to figure out
Which was
how to wake him
excellent.
up.
Which was excellent. Peter used his brain, his extremely sharp brain
To win the fight.
to win the fight against a man that he had no business winning that fight against.
He should not have.
You know, but he used his brain to do it, and it was done so well. Because I'm like, let's face it, if it comes down to just their abilities as
Strange
heroes,
wins.
Strange,
Yeah, Strange.
Strange has got him.
Yeah.
You know, Strange, he's one of the more powerful characters in the MCU at the very least.
Another thing I really liked about Strange's inclusion in this movie is, you know, you can tell that he genuinely cares for Peter when the first time he brings up the spell to the last time he brings up the spell.
Yeah, he wants to help him.
He seems genuinely like sad that like he's like gonna be missing a friend.
Yeah, you know, he wants to help Peter. He genuinely wants to help him. And, you know, it was weird with, you know, Wong not saying, you know, don't cast that spell. But it's like Wong kind of wanted to help him as well.
It seemed like nobody didn't want to go against Peter. They were like, we get what you're saying. We want you to not really have these problems.
Now, since we're on the topic of Doctor Strange, before we exit that topic, you know, it had been a theory for a while ever since the trailer. Do we think at any point that was Evil Strange?
I don't
think so.
Especially because of the later spoiler of our last, you know,
The credit scene,
Yeah.
which we'll get into in a little bit.
I don't think at first I kind of thought it, but as the movie goes on, like I said, you genuinely feel like Strange cares for Peter and is doing this because he wants to help his friend.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was Evil Strange, but there were portions where I was like, maybe.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking too. Was like, because there are moments where I'm like, because I mean he could just be pretending as well, and there are moments where I'm like, some of these moments are clearly Strange, but what if some of the moments aren't regular
Which makes
Strange?
sense, yeah.
You know, I'm like, what if?
He's being like clouded.
What if the sequence where he's fighting Spider-Man wasn't, you know, Strange? But I mean, odds are it was regular Strange.
Yeah.
It's just there are those moments where it's like, you know, that theory could have set in, and I can't really speak too much on it because I haven't seen that episode of What If.
Same.
So I don't really understand a lot of the context because I haven't got that far in What If. But
Strange comes really powerful and fucks up his world.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've gone X far, and you kind of regret your decisions.
But
that's where it kind of leaves.
What really had me questioning Strange was the fact that, I don't know if y'all noticed, but there were times where he had more facial hair than other times.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Because there was a time he had like his goatee, but he also had like 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, there's no way he's had time to shave. Like,
portions of
not
it
to mention,
were very sus.
Not to mention, he doesn't have the stone, but he's still got the
that's
the
the first
eye.
thing I noticed. Like, why does he still have the eye?
Because we saw Thanos break it.
Yes.
I'm like, did he make a new one?
It won't be the point if it's not housing anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't get that part. And I'm, Feige and Marvel and their continuity directors and people who keep track of that stuff. They're very meticulous about that kind of stuff.
Things are in scenes for a reason.
So nothing is done by accident. Well, obviously there are some things done by accident because there are some inconsistencies if you really try to nitpick them. But
when we're talking like costume design,
exactly.
People
Yes.
don't wear things in a movie not on purpose.
Doesn't he have it in What If? Like he has
it. Yes, he does.
See, that's interesting.
Doctor Strange has the eye of Agamemnon still.
Yeah. Isn't it Agamotto?
Agamemnon? It's
Agamotto. It's fucking Agamemnon, ancient Greek.
Warrior?
Yeah, he's like a Greek king, I think. Yeah, because he was the dude that, wanted to lead the Greeks against Troy. The eye of Agamemnon.
Seems more legit.
Anyways, so that's a big sort of question mark still left at the end of this movie. Is at any point was it Evil Strange? Did he still have the eye at the end of the film? I never tried to see it. I never actually saw.
I noticed it when he was casting the spell, and then.
Yeah, because I noticed that was the only time I actually noticed it.
I really noticed it was when he was casting the spell.
When we go back on Saturday, we need to be looking for that in the end to see if he does have the eye in the end.
Maybe when he's fighting Peter, he might have it on.
Well, yeah, I saw him. He had it when he was fighting Peter.
Yeah, when he's casting the spell when he's fighting Peter. That's
So we need to look for that.
It's definitely something
because that's and maybe he did and I just missed it. Just like how I didn't hear Andrew's theme play.
Yeah,
but y'all did. Well, I did catch Toby's music playing several times.
Our crowd got a little hyped.
Which obviously, by the way, Toby and Andrew are in the film. If you were at any point ever worried about it, they are in the movie, so you can rest easy.
Andrew's being "I'm not in this movie" was the literal first one to be revealed.
Man's still gonna be denying that he's in this movie. That's not me.
He's not the werewolf.
That's just a devilish, good-looking guy who looks exactly like me.
That's not him. That's Peter Parker.
The villains. The villains all came in very closely. That's something else we were talking about. We thought them entering was going to be sort of spread throughout the movie.
Everybody got there pretty much the same time.
Yeah, obviously we were introduced with Doc Ock, and his entrance was really sudden.
What I like about a lot of that scene is it plays off of one plot point to the other. He's on the bridge to talk to this lady that's the head of MIT to appeal so that him and his friends can go to college.
Right, because
he's there. We run into Hawk.
Yes, and obviously Peter and his friends are trying to get into college. They all get denied, rejected because they're Spider-Man, who people think is a murderer, and all his friends and girlfriend, obviously, they get rejected simply because they are associated with Spider-Man. Now, I love Flash's face when it comes up on his phone that Spider-Man is Peter Parker.
His shock is just great.
Sudden realization
he's like,
that he's been calling Spider-Man Penis Parker.
Literally, he's like, I want to be his best friend.
People have been shitting on the MCU's Flash, and it's like, I get why. He's not typically, a typical movie bully.
He's more like a real life.
Yes. I mean, I was bullied in school. I can attest that bullies were rarely jocks and really physically intimidating people. There weren't a whole lot of people that picked on me that I didn't think I could take in a fight. But it was more the fucking popular douchebags who simply wanted to humiliate you.
Yep. And Flash nails that.
He does great. He's an ass.
And obviously he has a history. His parents don't seem to care that much about him. We got that from Far From Home, so he's off. That leans heavier into that.
Sympathetic villains, we love them.
Yeah, but MJ, they felt like a more, even though it was right after Far From Home, they felt like a more mature couple already.
Yeah.
Much better than they did in Far From Home.
Also, the chemistry, and I'm not just going to say just between Zendaya and Tom Holland, but I can't remember the actor's name, the guy who plays Ned Leeds. Also, amazing.
It's Josh...
Yeah, it's Josh something.
Batalon?
Babylon,
or something. I can't pronounce his name.
But regardless, all of their acting was incredibly on point in this movie. They all genuinely felt like good friends.
Yes, they all had very good chemistry, and I think that helps because according to them, they're really good friends. In real life as well. They're all very close.
It definitely bleeds into the script.
Jacob Batalon.
Jacob, that's what his name is. Jacob
Batalon.
Batalon. Yes, he did really, really good as Ned. And I'm be honest, Tom, Zendaya, Jacob, this was their best they've done in any of these Spider-Man movies, for all three of them across the board. Their acting has been great. I mean, MJ's acting, particularly in the end,
was amazing.
it made my heart hurt. Tom, I cannot say enough good things about Tom Holland in this movie.
The debate is over. Tom is the best Spider-Man. It's hands down.
If you weren't sold on Tom before, this movie will sell you on him.
I've actually seen people who have sworn up and down for years that Andrew or Toby are the best Spider-Man there's ever been. I'm seeing those same people flip their opinions after this film. And you might not. You may die on that hill that Toby is the best, Andrew is the best. I can make several points, both for and against every single one of them. And honestly, Toby has been pushed down to my third favorite Spider-Man, and that's not to say I don't like him. So before the people's like, oh, he hates Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, let's get him. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that Andrew, for me, embodied a version of Spider-Man that I am more familiar with.
Yeah.
Toby's always felt like the OG Spider-Man from the comics, like from
Very
the Stan Lee Spider-Man,
the original stuff.
Amazing Fantasy. He felt like the original Peter Parker Spider-Man. It's just how he carried himself. He was always very straight up, very broad-chested. It's just how he carried himself and how he acted, very noble and everything. Andrew felt like a much more modern rendition of Spider-Man that I am, of course, used to with, comics and video games and TV shows and all that stuff. I will say Toby feels a lot like the original animated Spider-Man and Peter as well.
He does. Yeah.
He really gives that vibe. Yeah. Whereas Andrew really leans towards, more recent comics that we've read and stuff. And Tom has always given this sort of weird mismatch, vibes. It's like Peter and Miles' aspects of their personalities sort of blended together.
Which is not bad. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing.
But yes, after this film, there's no question in my mind, Tom is the definitive Spider-Man. And that's not knocking Toby. That's not knocking Andrew. They're both fantastic. I love them. Not a single one of them in this movie felt more like Spider-Man than the others. They all felt like Spider-Man. They all felt like Peter Parker.
Yes.
Now, we're going to segue into our small portion, but our Charlie Cox.
Yes! Oh my god. I marked out, and that was still me containing it. I wanted to scream like a little girl.
It was so cool to see him.
Everything that happened in the movie, we still got Charlie Cox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
brief. It was brief.
Oh man,
but it was the validation. He's in the MCU officially.
Plus, he gets a nice little move out of it. He catches
again, this is the spoiler one. When Peter meets Matt, they're going over lawyer stuff, and everyone knows who Peter is. They're all angry. There's an angry mob.
Yeah, and they're calling him a murderer and stuff. And basically that scene is just to establish that Peter cannot be held accountable for what happened to Mysterio. That they can't do anything to him really.
Yeah. So someone throws a brick through a window.
Yeah, because angry mobs and stuff.
And Matt, without hesitation, just grabs it in midair.
And it was so sudden.
He catches it before Peter could.
It was so sudden. And his fucking entrance was perfect. The stick, his fucking walking stick, and he sits down. It's just... Yeah. And, I mean, I'm just going to say, as much as I am a fan of Spider-Man, Spider-Man is my second favorite Marvel superhero of all time. Daredevil is my first. So seeing Charlie, who is just the best example of a live-action Daredevil I could ever hope for. Seeing him officially in the MCU, because it was always kind of gray whether or not the Netflix show was MCU canon. You know, they sort of played it fast and loose with it. It has references to the MCU, but obviously the movies never reference the shows.
Yeah.
So that was always kind of gray, but now he's in there. And even if the Netflix show doesn't end up being canon, or if it's loose canon from a soft reboot in the future, he's there.
Yeah,
yes, that's all I need.
Daredevil exists.
He's Matt Murdock in the MCU. And I think the first time we're going to see him suit up is going to be She-Hulk, I think.
I would believe it.
So I think he's supposed to suit up in the yellow suit, but that's a whole other topic.
That's
but
crazy.
Yes.
It was great to see him. I'm fucking glad he's a part of the MCU.
It just catches the brick. I'm a very good lawyer. It's just
I love that. I'm a good lawyer.
I'm like, it's fan servicey, which is why I can get over it not making sense. Like,
even Peter looked at him like,
because I'm like, sir, catching a brick is not indicative of your lawyer skills.
Before anyone else, before men with spider senses could even realize it was happening, you just go, nope.
Like, they both reached for it.
Yes, they both reached for it.
But because
Matt caught it first.
Because of Daredevil's radar sense, he caught it first.
And I don't care what anybody says. Look, radar sense is stronger than spider sense.
I agree.
You can you want to argue with that, you can die on that hill for all I care. And yeah, spider sense sometimes leans to borderline, precognition, which it does a couple times in this film itself. However, there's an example in the film that we're going to get to in a minute, talking about the spider sense, where you can see how it maybe doesn't quite... It's not the same as the radar sense. They're two very different things.
Yeah.
Peter can know when danger's about to happen, but he might not always know where. Whereas Matt, obviously, he can't see the future. He can't sense the future, but his radar sense is so pinpoint accurate. That's what makes radar sense so powerful. And we can talk about that, so we're blue in the face.
Of spider sense, let's just go into that.
Okay, all right, sure.
That's immediately following our Daredevil scene, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, villains. We're talking about his spider sense when he in the condo.
I want to go before we talk about that scene.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit to the chase scene with Doctor Strange.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
When Strange pushes him into the astral plane, at that point.
Yeah, from the trailer.
You're seeing Spider-Man separated from his body. It's already a cool shot. And then when Strange is trying to grab the box, and you see Spider Sense on full display, you can see Peter in the astral world.
Yes. The first clue you get is the Spider-Man, his body is still moving his arm, avoiding, Strange trying to grab the box from him, while, little Spirit Peter is just sort of floating there, and they look at it, and it's faint. You got to be looking for it, because I had to look for it to see it, but the little swiggly lines.
It was something weird about this, and then I was
like, the heat weighs off of the top of fire. It's perfect.
Yes. I was like,
exactly like
it was like a little kid. I was like, look, it's the lines, it's the lines.
And that officially establishes in the MCU that our Spider-Man spider sense is now precognitive.
Yes.
With just his body moves on its own. It's insane. Because now that literally establishes if Peter gets knocked out and thrown out of a window, he will catch himself, completely unconscious still. That's just how his spider sense is going to work now.
Well, it's weird because that's always inconsistent too. Because if it's completely it can't be completely precognitive, or he would never get hit.
True.
So it can't. It had borderline precognition. Sure, I can get on board with that. It's like this weird gray area between complete precognition and not. But like I said, if it was complete, he can sense the future and avoid it no matter what. He would never, ever, ever get hit. He'd be able to avoid the ass whooping that he inevitably gets later in this film if it was full on precog. So, it's a weird sort of gray area.
But it works.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it had to do with the fact that, his body was unconscious, but his spirit wasn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he still was seeing what was coming, too.
Yeah, so exactly. So it's sort of that gray area. I feel like if he was actually unconscious, it probably would not work. Because, like I said, he does take an ass whooping. If it was precog, he would not be taking that ass whooping.
And then we'll go into our second area of spider sense that we got, the nice condo scene.
Yes. Before we go into that, I want to talk more about the intro of the villains, about each villain. Because we talked about Doc Ock's intro, and by this point, pretty much everybody knows the bridge scene. I mean,
Yeah.
they put it out in little clips so much. We knew the entire bridge scene before it happened.
But that's like the beginning of the movie. That's the best
It
part.
is.
It's still the beginning of the movie.
Crazy part.
Action-packed film. I mean, from start to finish. There is no stop button on this film.
When we jump into Norman, still struggling between him and the Goblin.
Yes, in Goblin's appearance.
Yeah.
The bomb. When the theater marked out, the theater was excited to see Otto, but it's something we've seen in the trailers over and over and over. And then the fucking pumpkin bomb drops. And the theater erupted. And that wouldn't even be the biggest eruption that we had in the movie.
God, no.
I haven't felt that kind of energy in a movie theater since Avengers Endgame or Infinity War. And Infinity War and Endgame only had a few moments. This had far more moments like that.
Yeah.
Infinity War, off the top of my head, all I can really think about is, people got excited when Captain America showed up to protect Wanda and Vision. The biggest mark out was when Thor showed up. Yeah.
And then the ending of Endgame.
And the ending of Endgame, that was like a silence. A silent.
Yeah.
Oh no, Endgame. Yeah, you're talking about Endgame.
I'm talking about Infinity War. At the ending of Infinity War, where everyone just got quiet and everyone was just.
There were moments like that in this movie too.
Yes, and then absolutely, and then Endgame, of course, Cap picking up Mjolnir. Those types of moments.
But it's like those moments sprinkled all over this movie.
All over it.
Yeah.
Like this theater kept erupting, and it was a pleasant experience. I was worried going into the movie that it was going to be so jam packed that there were going to be people who couldn't shut up or whatever. But everybody was really respectful.
Everybody was there to watch.
We were all here to see this movie.
That's the benefit of going to a late showing on opening night for a movie about a character who is as popular as Spider-Man. It's going to be filled with nothing but die-hard fans who all want to see this. They know everybody else in this room wants to see this.
Hell, our showing started like 30 minutes later, and everybody was like, "Hey, can we just get to the movie now, please?"
Right.
We started late, and we have 5 trailers before.
Yeah.
After the third one, everybody's like, "All right, can we watch the movie now?"
But Goblin's introduction, I almost wish the helmet lasted just a little bit longer.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But it was cool to see him fully suited up and everything. The fucking laugh, and that's about all we got at first in the beginning, because then boom. Peter is sucked away by Strange.
Yep.
And it's crazy. He's got the villains locked up. We found out Strange had been going after him. He caught Lizard.
Yeah.
Strange obviously caught Lizard the first time. And they sort the whole thing.
Figure out what they need to do.
Yeah. Gave Peter that cool little magical gadget where he can just whip him, throw him into the magical cell, and the humor in this movie, like the Scooby-Doo, this shit felt a little tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
But the rest of the humor didn't feel like your typical tongue-in-cheek MCU humor. I felt like a lot of the humor was really tasteful.
Yeah.
And it was really well handled. There was a few moments.
There's a few jokes that
Scooby-Doo this shit and
Otto Octavius.
The Audio Octavius laughing at his name, which I've never had a problem with. It just felt a little tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, it felt not too forced, but it was like, come on.
I like the joke that May throws at Otto with she asks him if he wants
water
or salt water.
Yeah, fresh water or salt water. Yeah,
it's one of those dad jokes where I'm like, that's actually kind of funny. That's an Aunt May joke right there.
With him with Ock messing up the Iron Spider suit in the bridge scene.
Yeah.
Ripping off the chest piece of the suit, and then when he goes to stab him, the suit takes the mask away and puts it there to protect Peter.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, that's genius. I didn't realize from the trailer that that's what was happening. I thought he just took his mask off.
And it's also a testament to show how powerful that armor is. Ock goes in to stab Peter in the chest.
Yes.
And that armor defends him from the blade.
It actually
flattens the blade.
Bent the blade completely. And then, he integrates.
At first, I thought that Ock was taking his suit.
Yeah.
But then the script gets flipped, and it's Peter taking control of the arms.
Yes.
I was like, oh shit, maybe he makes Ock more powerful technology liquid. No, Peter did that on purpose.
That's another thing that, and I don't even know entirely that Peter did that of his own accord. Because I think it was just sort of a thing, like the nanotechnology was reacting with his arms, and then Peter realized what he could do.
Yeah, and since Peter's the one in control of the nanobots.
Because I don't think Peter would have,
thought
thought of that, at least not right away.
Not at the moment. It would have been something.
Because Peter was confused. He was like, what the fuck is happening here?
But he quickly catches on to the situation and takes control.
Yeah, he very quickly realized, and I love his, he's just sitting there, just laughing. at Doc Ock.
Because he couldn't do anything to him. He pulls him up, he pulls the lady up onto the bridge, you know.
Which was a really good hero scene.
He has a couple of jokes, and then Goblin shows up, the bomb goes off.
Yep.
And he makes the arms hold auto while he figures out what's going on.
Yeah, no, I'm in control. Yep. Gets pulled away by Strange. Strange then has Doc Ock. He has Lizard locked away. Those are the only two he had at the moment, right?
Yeah. So we get explained what he needs to do.
And what he needs to do and everything. And then, of course...
then we go to the transition scene where we get to see Sandman and Electro.
Yes, and I didn't know how that introduction was going to go, but I thought it was just so
a lot of it makes sense
done.
Because Sandman, as we left him, was not a villain anymore. He actually introduces himself by helping Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm Flint Marco.
He's like
you know,
Spider-Man.
yeah, and
he only recognizes Spider-Man. He's like, what's going on?
Yeah,
he wants to help.
You know, and I think he calls him Peter.
Yeah, he calls him
Peter.
Peter.
Because he hasn't seen his face yet. Yeah. He just sees the spider suit, and he's like, it's me, Flint Marco. You know, and Electro's charging up, and I love how they start him with Blue. He's not Blue for very long.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, cool. This isn't a different version of Electro like some people were theorizing.
It is that Electro.
It's the same Electro.
And they give you kind of reasons why, because he even quotes that he got his human body back.
Yeah, and he talks about more than once how the energy is different here.
Yeah. Apparently, the electricity that is established in the MCU operates, and feels different to Electro from his own universe.
Right, which I thought was interesting. So I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And it's a.
It also kind of makes sense because we're living in a world where Tony Stark invented the arc reactor.
Right.
We probably have better energy in the MCU than he's used to.
Right. Our tech is far more advanced in the MCU.
So that's probably why Electro got his form back. He has some kind of new taste of more powerful energy, basically.
Right. It was really cool. I liked, obviously how the black and gold suit is just his regular suit turned inside out because he got all that green mess on him that he couldn't scrub out.
So many advertising.
It's even on the souvenir cups from our theater.
But it's really just his black and red turned inside out because some hater threw some paint on him.
Yep, and it looked really good.
It actually does look good. But what I was really geeking out about is whenever you look at some of those scenes, you'll see some wires on his forearms and stuff because that's how his suit works.
Yeah.
It's all linked up and you see those exposed wires and he's got his phone duct taped to his chest so Ned and MJ can see what's up.
Yep. And, I mean, let's talk about how, when he trapped Strange in the mirror dimension by webbing him up with, geometry, webbing him up.
Peter quickly discovers how the mirror dimension works. He understands this geometry and just math. And just sets up this web trap because he knows how the objects are going to move.
Yep.
And while Strange is making a portal back, the rocks and everything he webs just kind of wrap around Strange and he just gets tangled by web instantly. Yep. It was one of those scenes where it's like, I love this because it's Spider-Man winning, but it's Spider-Man winning because he's very smart. And
900 IQ. But then, he not only takes the cube, which, originally theories were that the villains were trapped in the cube, but it wasn't. It was simply the spell that went wrong that he had contained, and people in the trailer were saying, "Oh, Strange wouldn't do this." I'm like, "Yeah, he's Doctor Strange. Strange is an arrogant son of a bitch."
Yeah,
he thinks, and he knew he could handle it. It was Peter's fault that this spell went wrong because Peter wouldn't shut the hell up.
Yeah,
which I've been saying since the trailer dropped. But he takes the cube, he takes this sling ring so that he can't just come back. And then Ned ends up with the sling ring, and Ned, he was talking about early when they've met Strange, it's like, how do you know you got magic or you're magical? Because I get this tingling in my hands, and he's like, you should see your physician.
Yeah.
and I thought that was the last we were going to hear of. I thought it was just a throwaway thing.
Ned comes out of left field, bringing a lot to the story. He's the one who makes the portals so our other two Spider-Men show up.
Yes, Ned is magical. He's got magic, bro. And we first saw it when they did their little handshake and they bump fists or whatever, and they get the sparks. The sparks from the sling ring because Ned was wearing it. And I was like, oh shit. It's like...
That's how I thought it was in it.
Honestly,
good foreshadowing.
Honestly, it was like the situation... It was a better version of learning that Finn was force sensitive in episode 9.
Yeah.
It's a better version of what happened with that.
I agree.
Because that was left very ambiguous, and I'm glad this wasn't.
Yeah. I thought the sparks was going to be it. I was like, oh, okay, that's it. That's all we're going to know about Ned.
Ned played a big role in the events to come.
Sandman does try to help, and help Peter try to take down Electro the first time.
And he definitely establishes he just wants to get back to his own
You know,
world.
and Sandman, Flint Marco's big thing is, you know, he just doesn't really seem to know who to trust. He doesn't trust anybody, and that's his big thing. And is like, you know, do I believe this Peter Parker? Do I believe these other guys who seem kind of like pieces of shit? You know, like, you know, I don't really care. I just want to go home, which sort of creates one of my nitpicky problems, and that's when the villains do inevitably turn on Peter. Flint, Sandman just sort of goes with it when there didn't really seem to be much indication prior that he would go with it.
As an example, like later on near the ending, our big action scene in the movie, you know, we get it. Flynn wants to go home. But Electro had stated before and during said fight that he wanted to destroy the box because he wanted to stay in that world. But Sandman's helping him do this even though he wants to go home. I feel like that could have been explained just at least a little bit better. Because if Sandman was fighting Electro and Spider-Man just because he wanted to get to the box knowing he could go home with that, that's one thing, but he helps him. That's what's weird to me.
The real thing about it, it's like, the only reason we get Flint as a villain, I feel like, is because of the line where Octavius tells Norman that he died in his universe. And that pretty much establishing that all those villains died, and it probably freaked Flint out to where he was like, I don't know what to do, because if I go back to my universe, I'm not going home. I'm going home to die.
Right, you know,
that's what sets a lot of
potentially.
them
to potentially die.
Yeah, and it's Jamie Foxx. Great as Electro. I mean, I'm be honest.
If you didn't like him in TASM 2, he redeems his character 1,000,000%.
You're gonna act like I'm not standing here butt-ass naked.
Butt-ass naked, one of my favorite lines from the movie. Y'all just gonna act like I ain't standing here butt-ass naked in the woods?
Jamie Foxx brings a lot to this movie. And I enjoy it every time he's on screen.
I hate the woods.
Yeah,
I hate the woods. Oh my god, Peter fucking misses one of his teleporting webs and grabs a tree.
Yes.
And Ned's all freaking out like, is this like a dude who got turned into a tree? And Jamie Foxx is like, dude, it's just a tree.
It's just a tree, man.
And that landed so well.
Oh my god. Jamie Foxx's comedy, his comedic lines were really subtle. And I appreciate that in the MCU because
they come off very well.
MCU humor, even though a lot of it is funny to me, it can be sort of in your face, tongue in cheek. You know, they don't shy away from, you know, sort of boom punchline.
Like at the beginning,
it's not very subtle.
Where
you know?
Peter and MJ first get back after the world discovers that Peter is a Spider-Man. There's a brief moment where Happy and May are just kind of walking in the house. And they're trying to figure out what's that noise. All they hear is MJ and Peter just going, oh god, oh man, oh man, oh god. And they're like, oh god, are they having sex?
That's very MCU humor. It was funny to me, but it was very MCU humor.
It's on par for MCU.
You know, and that, I think that was the only scene in the movie to me that felt kind of scatterbrained.
Yeah.
I was having trouble following because there were so many people talking at once. Yeah. I'm like, okay, what? We slow the fuck down for a second.
It was funny though that at that scene that Aunt May and Happy are basically having a breakup. Like
I felt so bad for Happy, man.
Happy's outside the door, like upset. He's like crying and stuff.
I felt so bad for Happy.
My guy Happy.
Why can't Happy be happy? Like, Happy can't have happiness. It's so ironic and sad. But yeah, so we capture the villains. You know, they're all locked up, and then Peter
makes a decision that he doesn't want to send these people to their death. He makes a very Spider-Man choice.
Yep.
He wants to help these people, and he does. He immediately starts working on it.
Obviously, Strange is like, no, we can't fuck with this. You know,
he understands. He wants to keep everybody's fate the same. Just
we need to send them back. We can't fuck with this type of stuff. You know, we did it once, and it was dangerous then. You know, back in Infinity War Endgame, all that stuff. You know, he's like, we can't do this again.
But
so
Peter, he just can't not help.
He made a very Spider-Man Peter Parker decision. He's like, I can't in good conscience send these people back to die.
But what I really like about the decision is the consequences.
Yeah.
Because even after, we'll get to it in a second, even after he makes this choice and it leads him down to this dark path of consequences happening to him, and he questions whether or not he wants to do this. He gets to that point where you feel like Peter might be going down a dark path. That he doesn't want to do this anymore. He's taken a big hurt, and he said he's done. Yeah. But when he really makes that decision to actually help these villains out and do the right thing, it's a good growth moment for Tom Holland's Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
Yeah, absolutely.
it really hit home with me. I enjoyed all of that.
I like that May had a lot more to do in this movie than she has in previous ones. Yeah. She wasn't just, hot Marissa Tomei, being Aunt May.
We're getting close to that. Well, let's
talk about we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, let's talk about what the villains do, and then...
let's talk about the condo. Let's talk about the condo.
Let's go back to the condo scene. So... Peter's working on getting all these cures and everything.
Yeah, and Doc Ock is, number one. Let's focus on Doc Ock because clearly he's still in control by his arms. Tom wants to help him with the help of Norman Osborn. Yes. Norman Osborn
plays a big role.
Yeah, after his appearance at the bridge, we find Norman Osborn covering up his glider. His mask is on a dumpster. He's still talking to himself. He gets pissed. He smashes his mask. He's still very conflicted. He has his good side and his bad side. He ends up going to... Feast! He goes to Feast.
To find Aunt May, helping him.
Aunt May, and then Aunt May gives Peter a call, and Norman Osborn wants to help, Norman wants to go back to his world as well, obviously. Anyways, we get to the condo, and Norman is going to help Peter as a scientist, which is really cool. Yeah. I thought it was really cool to see that.
Hang on, we also got the meme, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Yes, he actually says it. Oh my god. And of course the theater marked out when it happened. It was one of those moments.
I quoted the moment it happened. Norman back to being a scientist, helping people and trying to do good.
I loved the exchanges between him and Otto.
Yeah, they were
knowing that, they obviously did have a relationship. They knew each other relatively well back in their universe. I liked it. It's something we never got in Tobey's trilogy that I'm glad we finally got. However, another nitpick of mine is that Otto never mentioned Dr. Connors. Obviously, this is a different Dr. Connors than he used to, but he does know. We know for a fact he knows Dr. Connors. He's friends with Dr. Connors in Tobey's universe.
Which is weird. He didn't really say
I wish, one throwaway line would have been nice, about Dr. Connors being the lizard, I wish they would have mentioned that because it felt like he just ignored that.
His lifelong friend?
Yeah, is a giant lizard thing. Yeah. But... It's a nitpick. This
is getting into extreme nitpicky.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. It's just something I do wish they did. But Osborn's helping Peter design a cure to help Otto retake control of his arms.
So we get the arms under control. It's a nice moment, where he's saying that he doesn't have these voices in his head anymore. It's nice. We move on to Electro's depowering device.
Yeah, which was really cool. It just sort of sticks to him, and it sort of absorbs the electricity running through his body, most of it. We never really got to what he was going to do initially for Sandman. He never got to the drafting ideas for Sandman yet. That didn't come till later, and even then they never really explained his very well.
Yeah,
but it's
it had a similar light show to how he was made.
It was just it was a miniature version of what made him.
A super collider. And I like that exchange he had with Electros. I fell into a vat of electric eels, and I fell into a super collider. I was like, watch what you fall into.
Then Jamie Foxx's line, I'm like, damn. I can't remember what the exact
It was something like, you need to be careful where you fall into. I was like, ha!
It's good. It's good.
Anyways,
Then later on in the scene.
Yeah.
Peter's spider sense goes off.
It's amazing.
And it's like this whole silence to the room. And, Peter's getting up and walking through the hall.
And I like Electro's like, why are you looking at me like that? Because he's eyeing Electro. Yes, Electro's been the one who's been super apprehensive about all this because he likes the power. Yes. He likes feeling the power. He doesn't even want to go home. He likes how it feels there.
Yeah. And, this scene, it was like, what, a good minute of just... decent silence. I mean, people
I'd
were
say
talking,
at least 30 seconds.
But it was like a nice muffled, you could hear the spider sense.
He was just focused on his sense. He knew something was
he knew something was going to happen, but he didn't know what it was. And that's why, obviously it's borderline precog, but not quite there, because he didn't know that it was going to be Norman until Norman made his move.
And then he webs him up.
Yeah.
And, he webs his hand to, a lamp poster or one of the robots. It's just like, you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, and then Norman's bad side has come out. This, of course, was triggered by Otto mentioning to him, no more dark side, we cure you or whatever. And obviously, that triggered something in Norman.
Norman's like, no cure.
And, Willem
Dafoe.
Then
we proceed into one of the most badass fight scenes.
The biggest...
Watching as it's established that we all know that Green Goblin was attempting to make the super soldier serum.
Yes.
And
no
works.
Specific words. Yes.
But we basically watch somebody with the superhuman soldier serum in them fight Spider-Man.
Yes.
All out.
And I mean,
God.
And I mean, for any wrestling fans, Goblin straight up gives Spider-Man a double A spine buster through the floor.
Hard
Through the floor. Like, that's not even... We're not overselling it. They go through the floor.
They go through multiple floors.
Multiple floors,
Basically,
rooms.
they start at, like, let's say this is a 12-story skyscraper.
Yeah,
they start at, like,
story.
floor 10, and they fight to ground level.
Like, it's absurd. And of course, the move where... It's hard, you can't really explain it in words where Tom, flips him and stomps him down with the webs. That's something you just gotta see.
It's something that we've seen out of the Spider-Man games.
Yeah, in the Spider-Man games. Yeah, that's something you just need to see. You can't really put into words how that looked.
But the scene itself looked amazing.
That whole
the fight
choreography.
And I mean, look, Pete gets his ass beat. He gets his ass beat.
Near the ending, when they're like near the hallway towards the ground floor, like lobby, and Peter is just wailing, like absolute punch after punch on Green Goblin, and he just starts laughing
at him. Yep.
Like knowing that Peter is pulling his punches.
That was the spine buster.
Yeah.
Oh God.
That was
yeah.
like
I think so. Yeah.
scene.
I just it was absurd. They get to the ground floor. May's down there, and this is a scene that it's got your fucking heart racing. Like, you're so scared about what's gonna happen, and you're like, oh please, May, make it out of this.
Yeah, Peter's getting his ass whooped, telling May to leave. May doesn't want to leave. She wants to stand there and defend her nephew.
Yes, exactly. She grabs something that's hanging out of the ceiling, ready to just
do
fucking
something.
clock Goblin on the fucking head. Like,
after trying to use
and she squares up. She widens her stance. She's ready to square
ready.
up. Like,
and then Goblin's glider comes through.
God, oh my God! And I thought that was it for her. I was like,
no.
oh my fucking God!
She gets knocked across the room.
Yeah, I was like, no fucking way she survived that, and she did end up surviving that initially.
They tug on the heartstrings and then they cut them.
And then Goblin throws a
pumpkin bomb.
A nice misdirection where he's like, I'm gonna throw a bomb at her.
And
we're
thinking, that's it. He's gonna miss it. We're like, he's gonna miss the bomb, but he doesn't. He swats it away, and we're like, okay, thank fuck.
We're all like,
May is
he's
safe.
She's safe. She's gonna make
May
it.
gets up.
She's
talking with Peter, and Peter starts. He's broken at this point. This is all my fault. He blames himself for this. Wanting to help these people. May gives him the line.
Yes. Like, he's at the point where he's like, Strange is right. We're just going to send him home. It's not my responsibility. He literally said the line, it's not my responsibility.
Yes.
And May gives him
and
the
May
speech.
tells him, it's like, you did the right thing. You did the right thing. You wanted to help these people. And she tells him,
you have these gifts.
You have these gifts. You have this power.
And then
Great
she gives us
the
line.
The line comes from May in this version. And there's going to be some fucking elitist somewhere out there in some corners like, ooh!
That May's Uncle Ben.
They were fucking mad that Tony Stark basically took that role. It's like, no, Tony didn't take Uncle Ben's role. May filled that role. And I feel like that'll be easier to digest for hardcore fans. I was fine with Tony being a mentor, but I feel even better with May being the one to give him that Uncle Ben line. And I'm like, I'm okay with this. I like it. It puts Aunt May on the pedestal for once.
It hits home because this goes from, our Peter, as we've grown up with him at this point. This is going from a kid that just wants to be an Avenger, wants to be a superhero, to doing this because he has a responsibility. This is the lesson that I wanted I wanted Tom Holland's Peter Parker.
And it's something he teased all the way back in his first appearance in Civil War. When he says, when you can do the things that I can do, and then the bad stuff happens, it happens because of you.
Yes.
And they teased that way back then, so he had an understanding that he needed to do something with these gifts. But he's still young. He has a life that he wants to live, and that's something that Peter Parker struggles with every day in the comics. He wants to live a normal life and have this double life.
But then when he's finally faced with something that he doesn't feel like he's responsible for, and May, gives him the talk, gives him the speech, and lets him realize, it doesn't matter, whatever. If you have the power to do something that's right, if you have this great power, you have the great responsibility to make the right choice. That's a good lesson that I think our Peter needed to learn. And I'm glad he did
that 100%.
Yeah. And I'm glad May was the one to give it to him, because it really gave her character so much more weight than she has had in Homecoming and Far From Home.
But then we have to do the classic trope. He's been given the speech, and May dies.
And May dies.
May dies in his arms.
It's like they're about to walk out. We're thinking she survived. She goes down. She says, "I just need to catch my breath." She's dying. I knew there.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, she's about to fucking die.
When she said the line, I was like, damn.
I was like, damn.
It hurts so much, dude.
And the way in Tom, his acting
Happy
drove it home.
On par as his Infinity War in like ending where he was like
arguably even better.
Yeah, it's oh my
You know,
God.
his Infinity War, you know, Mr. Stark, you know, I don't feel so good, was great. This was arguably even better.
Yeah. I mean,
You know, this was an even more personal loss to him than you know, dying and, you know, losing Tony and everything that's happened to him with Tony. This was a much more personal thing.
Yeah, because like when Tony dies and he's like, you know, hey, we did it, Mr. Stark, we won. You know, he's still, you know, kind of there. He understands when May dies, and he's like, you know, like
he loses himself.
You know, he's constantly like, look at me, and
he can't.
Are you there?
It happens so suddenly. He obviously can't cope with what's happening. You know, it's the one person he never thought he would lose, especially because of the Spider-Man life, and he loses her. And you know he blames himself for it because, you know, this wouldn't have happened if he just agreed with Strange and sent them all back to their universes. And you know it weighs so heavily on him. I will say my third nitpick. Their insistence to avoid mentioning Uncle Ben has gotten a little annoying.
Yeah.
I can get over if they just don't want to put that importance on him. You know, giving it to May, I'm fine with. I actually really like that.
Yeah, I love that.
It was good.
But, like, you couldn't just mention him. Not even once.
Both Tobey and Andrew's Spider-Man mentioned their Uncle Ben.
Yeah, and then Tom doesn't even seem to acknowledge it.
Yeah, it's an Uncle Ben.
I'm like, really? You don't even acknowledge? I'm not, and
it's almost like he doesn't have one.
Exactly. That's what's made me wonder. I was like, does he not have an Uncle Ben in this universe?
It has to be.
You know, because, you know, we
even
just...
when the reference is made that both the other two Peters said...
No
that's
response.
what Uncle Ben said to me.
Yeah.
You know,
no response from him. No recognition from his eyes. Nothing. And I'm like, does our version of Peter really not have an Uncle Ben in this universe? It's a little upsetting. You know, I'm fine with Uncle Ben not being the, you know, great power, great responsibility guy. But it's like, come on, you could have acknowledged his existence. I kept thinking that May was going to say something, you know, that's what your uncle would say or used to say, you know, or something like that. Or at the end, you know, obviously at the end, May has died. Her tombstone is showed at the end. I thought the camera was going to zoom out, and I thought Uncle Ben's tombstone would be next to it. And I'm like, they never did that.
It was just her grave.
And I'm like, we didn't have an Uncle Ben.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
If Uncle Ben does not show up in the freshman year Disney Plus animated series, we don't have one.
Tom Holland just does not have an Uncle Ben.
It's a little upsetting.
I'm still fine with...
I mean, I can get over it. Yeah. You know, it's not a big deal. The movie was so good. It handles not having Uncle Ben so well. Yeah. I can get over it. It's just like, you feel like he still needs to be a part of...
Yeah.
Like, what's May's past then? Why is she single? Was she ever married, you know?
Yeah. It gives up a lot more questions to that.
You know, is she Peter's dad's actual sister and not just married to Ben Parker? Yeah. You know,
it has to be now
because you know it's like if there is no Ben Parker, it changes a lot about May's character.
Yes,
but it's a nitpicky thing. Again, it's not important. It's just a little thing. It's like, you know,
the story
weird.
that they told us. It
works.
It absolutely is fine.
Tom's acting with May's death. It's just Happy's acting, Tom's acting.
Now, I will say, around that portion of the movie, it gets a little weird because we have May's death, and then we transition to Ned and MJ, and we.
It was a little jarring going from such a heavy moment
to like, oh, we gotta bring him back up. Yeah. We gotta bring him up.
And bro, I cried.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I
had like I was wiping tears from my face.
Yeah, same. Like Aunt May dying,
I cried. I was just like, my hand was covering my mouth. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
But
I was
like I said, it's weird because we go from that, and we go from such a hard scene to, you know, everybody marking out because our other two Spider-Men show up and we have some jokes.
Yes.
But then right after that scene, we jump back into the sadness because, you know, Ned and MJ
right back
show
into
up.
it, and we'll get to that in a second. Now let's talk about the scene where our boys show up. And I caught it first. I was so proud of myself. I caught it before y'all did.
The portal opens. You see Peter in the alley.
Yeah, because I thought y'all two had caught it, and then when they showed him again, that's when I saw it click in y'all, and I was like, because the first time Peter Parker, and Ned's opening the portal. They're trying to find Peter because Peter hasn't called them or anything, and it's all in the news. And he opens, Peter Parker, and they call Peter Parker. You see Spider-Man down the alley. He looks. I noticed the big eyes first, and I was like, those eyes! There he is! There's Andrew!
I'm just like, what do you mean? I'm like, is your eyes in the mirror? The window behind him? I'm just looking. I'm like, what do you mean? And they showed it again. I was like,
yeah,
he's here.
Because it was very brief. The first portal they showed was really brief. He quickly turns, and then it cuts, and then it cuts back. And then it's like, boom, you can see him. He comes running down the alleyway, jumps through the portal. It's like, shit. And
like, our theater erupted
erupted.
And then it erupted more when he takes the mask off.
Yes, because when he takes the mask off, people flipped out. And as much, hate as the TASM movies get, people were so excited to see Andrew.
Yeah. I was excited as fuck.
I was too. I love Andrew so much as Spider-Man. I love all three of them. Andrew did a fantastic job in his movies.
We have Tobey's entrance, which felt very wholesome.
Andrew's felt very Spider-Man. And Tobey's felt very Tobey, sort of downplayed, subtle.
This was something I want to talk about on the car at home, but I wanted to save it for this. So, when Tobey's Peter shows up, he's already looking for Peter.
Right.
He saw on the news that May died, and he understood the situation is like,
or at the very least,
he understood that Peter was in trouble.
Yeah, at the very least, he saw the destruction and everything that's been happening.
Spider senses letting him know that that Peter needed their help.
And I really like that. Obviously, Tobey's older. Yeah. I like that he is a Peter who is much farther into his Spider-Man career. Yes. I respect the fact he's got the same suit.
Yep.
He's a traditionalist, which I had heard rumors that they wanted to update it, and Tobey refused.
Yeah.
He wanted his original suit, and I don't know if those are true or not, but that's what I heard. But I could believe it, but I don't like saying things unless it's confirmed. But
then we jump to the scene where MJ and Ned console Peter, and our other two Spider Boys show up.
Yeah.
We have the nice talk, about, Ben and responsibility. And
because both of our, the other Peters do bring up Uncle Ben, like we said.
They bring up their Bens,
at the same time, Tom is also, he's done. He wants to send them back. He wants the box.
Yeah, he's done with it. He's done with this shit. I mean, he got his ass beat. He lost his Aunt May, and he's done with this shit, and it's crazy because, like, and when Tobey and Andrew's in his spider suit, by the way. Tobey's, it just looks like he's in street clothes.
A youth pastor.
A little youth pastor going in the
mouth. And the first shot of them, silhouettes up on the tower. They're both stuck to the tower.
It was cool.
That's a great shot. Like in the moonlight.
Yes.
It's a really good shot. And they jump down and Tom
freaks out.
Yeah, he doesn't know, these more enemies, because I'm tired of this shit.
I'm done with all of y'all.
And they put their hands up, they're not bad guys, and they have this big heart-to-heart with Tom's
Peter. I really
Peter.
like how it kind of begins where Andrew's Peter was like trying to tell Tom, like, I know what you're going through. Tom cuts him off like, don't tell me know what I'm going through. But then it's like,
don't patronize me, basically. Yeah. Is basically what he's doing.
But then he says, like, losing someone he loves, and then you see the look on Andrew's face, and you're like,
and he gets there anyways. Yeah. He gets there and explains it anyways. And then Tom, you can see it set in his face. Okay, well, he does understand what I'm going through.
It's a lot of emotions off of faces in that scene.
Yes, and I mean, it was such a cool way for them to meet for the first time. And I mean, we got to talk about the fact that we sort of get an idea of what happened in Andrew's timeline later on, and based on what we were told.
I want to talk about this right now because it's sad.
Yeah.
The line quote from the movie is, Andrew stopped pulling his punches.
Yeah, he literally said that.
And anybody that's a real Spider-Man fan, we've heard this line in comics before, and that line just kind of, it hits you in the gut because
how strong Spider-Man is.
And then you realize how far Andrew's Peter had fallen, because that's a very dark
after
path.
Losing Gwen, Peter's been through the shit in the comics. And has not fallen that far.
See, for me, I expected Tobey more to say. I don't know why, but part of me was like, if anyone's going to be a more, like, darker Spider-Man,
you think so?
It was going to be Tobey.
I never felt that way, because Tobey's always given me the more heroic vibes.
That's why I thought it would happen. It was like his fall from grace. Something would happen to him.
And even if that was pitched, I don't think Tobey would have went with it. I think Tobey would have said no. No, not my Peter Parker.
I think it works best how they.
It does work better with Andrew.
Oh,
because,
absolutely.
You know, a lot of it makes sense because whenever we think of Tobey's Spider-Man, we always think of a nostalgic, true hero.
Yep.
But when we get into that side, because Andrew never really got to finish a trilogy, and hearing how far he has fallen, basically,
and we can assume that later down his timeline he stopped pulling his punches, as he said, but we can assume that was maybe with the Lizard.
Yeah. That's how
that maybe that's how Lizard dies later on in his timeline.
Yeah.
So we can assume. I think we can safely assume that.
Yeah.
We come to a realization where these three Peters, obviously they the two Peters need to help Tom's Peter. They go into a lab or whatever, and we get this great scene where they're working together as scientists.
Yes.
It's brilliant. I
Peter's
love it.
Scientist.
And it's
these nice lines where our Tobey can understand where he make a counter serum to Goblin.
All these fan servicey lines as well.
And we get to the web scene.
Yes.
Where
yes.
Tobey doesn't understand what these web cartridges are for. Both Andrew and Tom were like, yeah, it's web for our thing, and Tobey just slings a fucking shot at something. They're like, whoa!
I love their response. I love Ned's like, that came out of you, and he's just like, you guys can't do that. It's the realization,
wow.
And it's this smug realization that he's like, I can do something y'all can't do. That's how it feels. And I love Andrew's line. He's like, how in the world does that even and he's like, got his hands up and his fingers are moving. Like he's just intrigued by how that works.
While we're on this wave,
yeah.
Andrew felt like he wanted to be there more than anybody.
He was the most hype of all the Peters in that movie. He really embodied the audience's energy and excitement in that movie. Like,
it was great. Andrew has some of the best lines.
He really does.
Where he's
really
like,
great.
I've always wanted brothers.
So
near the ending where they huddle up and he's like, I love you guys. And they're like, thank you. You could just feel that Andrew was like, I'm so fucking happy to be here and be Spider-Man again.
In the lab scene, they're working on a cure for these villains because, their whole talk on the rooftop was that, Peter should still try and do the right thing.
Yeah.
Their Uncle Ben gave them the motivation to push forward. His Aunt May did the same for him, that they need to stay on the path, do the right thing. Because
it's what they do.
Tom's Peter mentioned, he wants to kill Goblin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I want to rip him.
Yeah, he says, I want to rip him in two. Like, and I'm like, he can fucking do it too.
Why can't he do it?
And it's...
Then we get the pointing meme.
We get the pointing meme.
It was great because Ned's like, Peter, and all three of them are just like,
they're like, what? It felt
so
so organic, and I was worried that meme was going to be shoehorned in just for memes, but it felt
natural.
organic. It didn't feel like it was forced in.
It was good.
And that just comes from them being good actors and how they pulled it off, and it was brilliant. I can't believe they did. It sort of felt weird seeing Tobey in all these scenes, and I don't know if I was the only one that felt this, but Tobey felt like the old man who doesn't get it.
What are you guys talking about?
He's doing it because it's his job to do it. But it's almost like you get the vibe like he doesn't get it. Like Andrew probably gets it. Tom definitely gets it. Yes. But Tobey's just like, huh?
Yeah.
All right, I'm just doing my job.
They're all pointing. Why am I pointing?
That's just how it felt. Maybe he does understand, but that's just how it felt to me. But they make the cures and everything, and we still haven't seen Tobey suit up yet. We get a little peek. He's got his suit under his street clothes, which is cool.
It was so nice to see.
Yeah,
he always keeps that motherfucking thing on.
Exactly.
You're going into battle dressed like a youth pastor.
That was great.
Yeah, that was a great line.
Great. He kind of flashes down his shirt, like
that's all I needed.
Suit. I was like, oh my god.
That was the first time I was like, are they gonna just make him a new suit or?
That was really great.
I got it.
I appreciate that he had been looking for Peter. That he was the one, being the oldest, that had the sort of foresight to know that this Peter needs his help. He's been through so much in his own timeline. It was like sort of, the wisdom that came with his age.
Yeah.
That he needs to help this Peter. No question about where he is, what universe he's in, because they came in at the same time as the villains.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, they just been wandering around. Andrew seemed more confused about where he was. Tobey is like, okay, this is clearly not my world, but there's another Peter here, and I need to help him.
Yeah, he's in desperate need.
It was like, no question about it, jump into action, go be the hero, which
hero.
felt very Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Didn't fully grasp everything. Just know that he needed to be there.
He needed help, and he's going to help him because he's Spider-Man.
And that's what they do. I love it. That line was said
what we do.
Multiple times. Like, that's what we do.
Yep, I love that. I love that so much. You know, it sort of harkens back to, to Thor's, and that's what real heroes do. You know, like, I like that. And, of course, we get into the setup for the final battle.
It was so good.
Which is so good. I mean,
we
have some of the best 5 minutes I've ever seen in a superhero movie, where it's just them talking about Peter's web shoot, about his webs and stuff.
Yeah, we get Toby's reference to his back hurting. You know,
yes, on my back. He's
a very
leaning over the bar to the scaffolding, and he's trying to stretch his back out.
Yeah. It's a very meta joke.
And I love how he's just like, he's probably stiff from web swinging and stuff.
It felt organic. It's a meta joke.
It's sort of like, he doesn't want to tell him that how he hurt his back.
It's like, and he was, I got lower back problems too and everything from the swing.
I love how Toby's like, he doesn't want to explain to him that he fell several stories and cracked his back on a car. Like
the web clogging. He's like,
a web block. They're talking about his organic webs, and Andrew just seems so intrigued by it. He wants to know how it works, and Tom's like, we just want to know how it works, like. And he's like, and Toby's just like, I've never really thought about it. He's like, I don't actively do it. Yeah, he's like, I don't think about breathing. I just do it, Yeah. And Andrew's like, you ever get a web block? Does it ever clog? And he's like, yeah, actually, it's existential crisis,
like,
yes.
Nice little callback.
All these callbacks to their previous movies, and I'm like, the fan service was done so well. Everything I wanted this movie to do as a fan, they did, and it never felt cheap,
Yeah. When they talk about the biggest villains,
yes,
then I fought an alien.
Toby's like, it was like black goo, and Tom mentions I fought a purple alien from on Earth and in space, and Andrew's just like, I want to fight an alien.
And then Toby's like, can we just back that up? You fought an alien in space?
Yeah, and I love how Andrew's just like, I'm so lame.
And Toby immediately jumps in like, you're not lame. You're amazing.
Yeah, you're amazing, and that was. Theater popped off for that. He's like, you're amazing. You're amazing. He said it several times. It's so great. And Andrew's just like, I really need to hear that. Thanks.
It was so good.
They all felt like Peter Parker.
Yep.
They all felt like Spider-Man. I'm going to be honest. I mentioned this in the car. This movie, Toby felt more like Spider-Man and Peter Parker than he did in his own trilogy.
Toby's got quips. I'll just put that out there. He's got quips. Dress up as Spider-Man. It's
and he was quippy in his trilogy, but it was sort of far and few between. He was the least quippy of all of the three Spider-Mans we've gotten in live action. I've said it before. Andrew had more shit talk in the first 30 minutes to an hour of his first movie than Toby had in his whole trilogy. And I know it sounds like I'm ragging on Toby a lot. I'm not. I adore him as Spider-Man. It's what I grew up with. I love Toby's trilogy.
They definitely give him some quips in this
movie.
He
does shit talk and have a lot more quips in this movie than he did before, and he had the few in his trilogy. I'm the sheriff around these parts, and you're getting annoying or something, and I have a knack for that. He does it.
It was very of his time. Like we like to harken back that Toby is the 70s, early 60s Spider-Man. So his quips were like that.
Even the animated 90s Spidey, he had quips, but they were
lighter.
They're lighter quips, exactly. They're less, sarcastic, shit-talky quips.
Yeah. And Andrew and Tom have very shit-talky quips.
Yeah, particularly Andrew. Andrew's always been a big shit-talker of Spider-Man.
Andrew feels like a real New Yorker.
Yeah, shit-talker Skywalker. That's who Andrew is,
It was great.
It was really good. You can't really argue, who was a better Peter or Spider-Man in this film because not a single one of them felt more like Peter or Spider-Man than the other two.
They all just felt genuine.
Yep, they felt like Peter Parker. They felt like Spider-Man. I couldn't have asked for a better performance from any of them. Tom's acting. Willem Dafoe and Tom gave the best acting performances in the whole film.
Willem Dafoe is a highlight of this movie. Both as a friend and a foe. He is an absolute highlight of this movie. And I'm really glad Willem was like, I want to do my own stunts for this. Because that allowed them to put in such good camera angles and camera work.
Oh, yeah.
It allowed them to get,
Because, everybody knows when we do stunt doubles, we have the camera pulled back. You don't want to see their face.
Often face away.
We have some hard hits in this movie, and we see Willem Dafoe's face.
Yeah, and, speaking of Willem Dafoe and the Goblin, we finally get the purple scarf, the hood. He's just got goggles. I really like it. He comes into the final battle scene. Obviously Lizard and Sandman and Electro. And Electro, I think, was the highlight of that battle scene.
Yeah.
His ability is really cool. The lightning sort of forming the mask on his face is really cool. He's got the arc reactor that he took from the condo scene.
Is like almost unlimited power for him.
Yeah, it really juiced him because he was fighting off 3 Spider-Men.
He used even the arc reactor as like almost like as Tony did, how he would use like the middle shoot to shoot things off of it.
He's just gaining all
he was
of power
juiced because, like I said, he was taking on 3 Spider-Men.
Boy had his juicers.
It was cool. It was really cool.
It was very cool.
The swing scene before they get to the top of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes, when they all land together.
They bounce off of each other. They do these really cool swings, and then they all land, and they're super iconic poses.
Yeah, and I love how they briefly talk about, how, they fuck up, one of them shoots a web, and it was Tom that shot the web, wasn't it? And was it Andrew that hit the web?
I think it was Andrew gets clotheslined by Tom's web.
It was hilarious.
While he's falling, Andrew shoots the web up, and it grabs Toby's face.
It's hilarious, and it's like they just have to take 5, and they're like, I'm sorry, I've never worked as a team before. And then Tom's just like, well, I have. I was with the Avengers. And Toby's just like, the Avengers? That's great. What are the Avengers? He's like, what is that?
Andrew jumping in. Is that a band? Are you in a band?
He's so excited. They're in the middle of a fight, and he's like, are you in a band?
It's fucking great, because they have no idea who the Avengers are.
It's fantastic.
But then we go to one of my favorite scenes with Andrew, where they're like, okay, we're going to, take them on one at a time, focus up on one guy. Toby, you're Peter 2. And Andrew gets all hyped. I'm Peter 3.
I'm Peter 3.
For a brief moment, I thought I heard him say I thought Andrew looked at Toby and said, "Wait, I thought you were Peter 1 and I'm Peter 2." And then Tom was Peter 3, and they're like, "No, you're Peter 2, you're Peter 1. Let's do this."
Peter 3.
I'm Peter 3. It was great.
It was really great.
They'll mask up. Yeah. Then they get to the real fight.
Yeah, Toby and Andrew never once took spotlight from Tom. This was Tom's movie through and through.
They felt like what they were.
They did their job. I can't really feel like I could ask for more because I felt like their screen time was perfect.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like they didn't overstay their welcome. It wasn't too little. It was perfect. But then, like you said, we get to the real fight. We
start taking down the villains.
Yeah, we get taking down the villains, curing them. They cure Sandman first. Toby is the one that cures him. They finally get him the little device that cures him.
And then we notice how really powerful Electro was in that fight.
Yeah.
He's holding all 3 Spider-Men off.
Yeah.
If Doc Ock didn't show up and
saves.
psych him out,
I
don't know, man.
Doc Ock pulls like a double agent type deal, makes him think he's helping them, but he's really helping the Spider-Man.
Gets Electro. And then, everything calms down.
Lizards was sort of sudden. They cure him sort of suddenly. Of course, Goblin still has to come in.
But, then Strange shows up.
Strange.
Playing the situation to him. Strange is like, oh wow, Peter's actually doing this. It's working.
Yep.
We calm down for a bit, and then Goblin shows up.
Yep.
With a nice line of, "Could Spider-Man come out to play?"
Yeah, and we have the whole scene where Ned and MJ are in danger, and it was exactly like we thought it was going to be because Tom's Peter goes to save MJ, and now I didn't think it was going to happen this way.
Yeah.
He gets
cucked by Goblin.
Yeah, he gets cucked by Goblin. The glider smacks him right when he's about to grab MJ, and then Andrew redeems himself.
He dives in there, no hesitation. It was he catches her, he saves her.
Great.
He's like, "Are you okay?" And then you can see the sadness.
I love how the dude next to us was like, "Don't kiss her."
Don't kiss her, bro. Hey.
Yeah, it was really.
You see Andrew's face get kind of sad because it's like,
he tears up even.
He's like, damn, I could have.
And it's just like, I did good. I'm not gonna let this Peter go through what I went through. We're not going there. And then of course we get the Goblin fight, the final Goblin fight, and it's so good. Goblin comes in, he throws the blades, and
Peter's had enough of this shit.
Tom's Peter does the same move to dodge Goblin's blades that Toby's Peter did in that burning house in Spider-Man 1.
Nice, jumps.
Yeah, where he's spinning sideways. And he does the exact same move. Now, if you blink, you might miss it because the camera's panning upward as he's doing it.
And there's multiple characters doing
doing stuff. Yeah.
But look for Tom Spidey.
He's in the middle of the characters. He's middle, bottom of the frame. He's doing the same move. I'm like, that is so great.
I originally thought it was Toby, but then I was like, no, that's not Toby.
Yeah, because I could tell because of the integrated suit.
That's how you're like, oh my god.
Yep.
He did the move.
And now Tom and Goblins fight. Peter and Goblins fight.
At this point, Tom's had enough. Tom's at the end of Goblin's glider.
This man's out for blood.
Off and fucking pulls out a bomb, activates it, puts it back in.
Sticks it like up under his glider, pops it.
They fall out of the
They
sky.
go down, they tumble down, and this man's out for blood at this point. He beats Goblin's ass. I have never seen Spider-Man in any live-action form fight like this.
He murks out.
He beats his ass.
As an example of strength, they show this in the scene. Goblin dodges the punch from Tom.
Yes.
He punches through this metal shield.
That they were replacing the torch and the Statue of Liberty for it because it fell in the battle.
He punches through this shield. A good solid punch. He's not holding back.
He would have busted Goblin's skull with that shot because he was out for blood.
Anyone else who would have fought that Peter would have just died in the first.
Yeah, if it wasn't Goblin, anyone else would have gone down dead.
Mortal Kombat.
And he gets the upper hand. He's wailing on him, and he is.
You can feel the weight of these punches.
Yeah, and the anger on his face. Tom acted this scene beautifully. Yes. The anger and sadness on his face as he is beating Goblin's ass because it's Goblin's fault May's dead. Goblin killed her, and it's just he's wailing on him, and he picks up the glider who's got the blades out, and he's ready to stab. He's ready to kill Goblin, and Tobey Spider-Man cuts him off. He catches it. He's not going to let him do this.
That scene was really powerful because words aren't said.
It's
just the look on their face to each other.
Mm-hmm. Tobey doesn't even shake his head.
No,
he just looks at him.
And you can tell, after Tobey starts, kind of pulling the glider to the side to put it down.
Yep.
Their facial expressions spoke more than any words they could have said.
Oh yeah.
It was such good acting. It was insane. It was a very powerful scene where, Tom's making the decision to do the right thing.
Absolutely. And I mentioned this earlier when we were coming in. I appreciate that it was Tobey doing it. I do think it would have had more weight had it been Andrew that stopped it, given what we now know about where his Spider-Man ended up in life with him going into that dark place and not pulling his punches. I feel like it would have had more weight.
Yeah.
But he had his moment saving MJ, and Tobey's version did need a moment, a really good moment in that fight, in that climax. So I can get over it. It makes sense. He indirectly killed Goblin in his timeline, by dodging the glider. Yeah. He didn't kill him, but he sure as hell didn't stop him from dying either. So it's sort of his own way of stopping Tom from going down that road. Yeah. And it also felt right in a way because Tobey's version is the more seasoned.
Yeah.
He's gonna be, the old man. It's it's sort of like, this ain't the way, son. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really good moment.
Not a word was said.
Not a word was said.
We got a big cop out.
And then Andrew throws the cure to Tom. Tom catches it.
After Tobey being stabbed.
Yes, that's right. Goblin. Tobey got stabbed by Goblin.
And they faked this out. We were like,
we thought Tobey was going to die.
Not again. God. I was like, no, I can't take both Aunt May and Tobey dying.
And then Andrew throws the device, and then he right in the neck, cures Goblin. Norman now doesn't have his dark side.
He even says, what have I done?
Yeah, looks straight at Tobey lying down and says, what have I done?
It's also a really sad moment. These little rifts then start to break in the fabric of time space.
We need to go for a second viewing because they do a lot of outlines of other characters.
Yeah, that are those rifts that start to appear in the trailer. They start to split open, and I like the effects. It's literally two buildings, and it rips like paper. Yeah. It rips open. Reality is splitting on itself. These universes are colliding on each other, and more people who know who Peter Parker is, because that's what the spell is all about, and people coming over were simply people who know who Peter Parker is and know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. More were going to start coming over, and that's what Strange is talking about in the trailer. They're starting to come through, and I can't stop them. It's just too much for him to handle. And of course,
and then Tom Holland's Peter makes
this big self-sacrifice.
One of the hardest choices.
He's
he lets everyone forget.
Just let everybody forget me because that's what brought them here, and it will stop them. Out of the characters, the only one we could make out was Rhino. Yeah. It was just silhouettes.
Definitely have to go see it again.
Yeah, there were a couple other characters I could not catch or make out. One was a feminine figure, so could have been Black Cat, maybe.
And these are very vague silhouettes.
Yeah, and even Rhino wasn't Andrew's version.
Yeah,
that was not a mechanical looking Rhino.
That was
a
mechanical
very
Rhino.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe to be honest, it almost looked like Toby's version from the video game.
Yeah.
It did.
It kind of looked like that. Like the silhouette was shaped like Toby's video games. It was Spider-Man 2 Rhino Fight. You know, that's what it looked like. It was kind of cool looking, but you know.
But
anyways, yeah, you know, he tells him, you know, just let everybody forget me, you know, and and Strange has this big moment with him. You know, Strange tears up. You know, they've been through a lot, saving the universe together. You know, he's, you know, I'm gonna miss you.
Again, the whole running gag with him and Strange at the beginning was, you know, oh, we've saved the universe together. You don't have to call me sir.
Yeah, and then Peter fucks up the spell and is like, you're like, call me sir. And then
at the end,
he's trying to call me Steven.
When he makes the choice, and you know, he's
like, which is another thing. Sort of goes back to like, you know, was any of that ever evil Strange? Because it's like, what if it was evil Strange? Like, call me sir.
Yeah.
You know, what if it wasn't just he's pissed? What if that was like, you call me sir?
No,
like,
sir.
I could believe that, but I'm not gonna get into that again. But yeah, you know, he's like, you know, call me Steven. You know, it still sounds weird. You know, like,
he's like, he still doesn't.
You know, he's all teary eyed. And I'm getting emotional at this point, and. Of course, you know, he's like, he needs to go say his goodbyes to Ned and MJ because they're going to forget. And this isn't just they're going to forget Peter Parker as Spider-Man. They're going to forget Peter Parker.
Yes.
Everybody will forget him. It's like he never existed.
That's how we end this movie, is that everyone forgets
the
who
goodbye
Peter Parker
scene
is.
Was so hard to watch. It was because
I cried again.
I cried. You know, I'm not afraid to say I cried. You know, tears ran. It was hard. Zendaya's acting in that scene was so good. It was so touching and hard to bear. And Ned crying and tearing up, and the spell happens.
And we go into the scene.
Of course, yeah.
You know, Peter's trying to maybe go remind his friends who he is, and
he promises before the spell
happens. Yeah, he promises that he'll find her and remind her.
I'll remind you
know,
guys.
And she's, you know, what if it doesn't work? And he does find her, goes to her place of work, and he's got this whole written speech. He's rehearsing on the way, and he walks in there, and she looks. He thinks she's looking at him, realizes, but it's just Ned coming in. She sees Ned. They're still friends, which is cool. Yeah. You know, I didn't know if it was going to happen that way.
I was a little worried that maybe Ned and MJ would have been together.
I honestly, for a brief second, I was like, no,
because that would have broken my heart if I saw that.
That would have been messed up. But they're obviously still just really good friends.
They're just good friends, and Peter's like.
They both got into MIT.
Yeah, they both were accepted to MIT, which means that they would be leaving New York.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, and Peter's ready to tell her, to tell MJ.
But then he makes that classic Spider-Man choice and wants to keep them safe.
That's selfless. That very selfless choice, and he just doesn't tell her. You know, and it's this thing. You know. Is Peter prepared to leave them behind completely to protect them? And it's a very Peter Parker thing to do.
It's one of those things where it's like, it hurts, but...
He knows they're leaving. They got accepted to MIT, they're going to be leaving.
And he feels like, it's a classic Peter Parker thing. You know, he
so
doesn't want to ruin their life.
It's so heartbreaking, because it's like, he tears up while looking at MJ, you know, and it's like he wants to so bad, and you can tell he wants to.
You can tell he wants it, and the final, to me, what finally made him go, "I'm not doing this." He saw the bandage on her face. He was like, I can't do it. I can't put them in danger again.
You know, I lost Aunt May. I almost lost them. I can't do this. You know, and
it's really
their life is on track.
Yeah,
you know, their life is going the way they needed it to go.
It's a bittersweet moment.
Back to the bridge scene when Peter goes to meet the I think the vice president.
He's there the whole time.
He's not there for him. He's here for Ned
to try and convince this lady to give them another chance to get into MIT.
Yeah, he's not even worried about himself.
She even said it. We will see if we can reconsider Ned and MJ's and yours. She's like, well, I'm not here for me. I'm here for Ned and MJ.
Right.
And she's like, no, I'll also
they get accepted. He decides to not tell them and leaves, and it's such a sad scene.
It's so heartbreaking.
He gets his own apartment. I like that, you know, the first thing we hear when he's walking is like, rent's due at the first of the month. Don't be late. I'm like,
but then it gets even more sad because you see a GED book in one of his boxes, and you have to think about that. It's like,
everybody forgets he exists. His education's gone.
His education no longer exists. He can't go to college. He has to get a GED now.
Yeah. I mean,
Peter Parker doesn't exist to the world.
Like, he could still find a way to get into college.
Oh, of course.
But, you know, he can't get a high school diploma because his education's gone. There's no record of him being at those schools. No one's going to remember him.
Peter Parker does not exist for all intents and purposes. He's just
and with May gone, there's no familial connection there anymore.
Yeah. But then, you know, we have the scene where Peter's at May's grave and Happy shows up. And you're just like, maybe Happy remembers. And it definitely pulled on my heartstrings where I'm like hoping, like, God, please let Happy remember. Because, you know, because he asked, like, how did you know May?
And Peter says, through Spider-Man. And Happy
like,
says, me too.
And right there, I'm like, no.
Oh, man. It's like he knows Spider-Man. He remembers Spider-Man, but he doesn't remember Peter Parker. And it happened exactly like we thought it was going to. It erases all connections he had to Stark Tech. He's not going to have Stark Tech anymore. All of those complaints, Iron Boy Jr., which,
gone.
You know, were fucking stupid complaints, in my opinion, to begin with. But, you know, they're gone. You got no reason to make those complaints anymore. He's got to do everything on his own now.
This is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Exactly. You know, everything that people have been wanting for Tom to become as Spider-Man, he's becoming. He is on that path.
The movie ends when, like, around Christmas starting because you know the snow.
Yeah.
And then we cut to him gonna go on patrol as Spider-Man. We see a nice sewing machine.
A sewing machine with red and blue.
And that blue, I just have to say, that blue that you see on the sewing machine, if that doesn't get you hyped, to proceed to we finally get it, a swinging scene
through New York
with Tom Holland.
Spider-Man,
and this new suit, this new red and blue suit. I can't wait to see this movie again so I can get a better look. But from what I've gathered so far, it's now my favorite suit.
It looks
I was so afraid they were going to show it to us. I just thought they were going to end it with the red and blue, and it's like, oh yeah, Peter's about to start working on a new suit.
Yeah, like for the longest time, his Civil War suit was my favorite suit, a live-action Spider-Man suit, followed closely by Tobey's suit. But now it's the classic suit. There's no additional red or there's no additional like black bars or anything on it. It's just fabric and it's red and blue.
Web shooters underneath.
Yep.
It's so clean.
The blue is sort of shining, reflective almost, and the red is not. So it looks so clean. Yes. It's the classic. I mean, the belt tapers down to the point. It's everything you want from a Spider-Man suit.
Now, you don't get, like, a full-on, like, front, back. This is what the suit looks like.
Yeah, you don't get the best look because it's nighttime. He's constantly in motion, flipping around and stuff. But you get decent pieces. Looks.
Yeah, you'll get decent pieces.
Yeah, you can, and it'll probably take more than one watch to see everything about the suit, like to get a good look at the spider symbol on his chest, which I didn't catch, but you did. Yeah. Caught a better look of it than I did. And apparently, you know, you said his spider symbol is different than the one he's had thus far.
It's definitely big. It definitely reminds me of Raimi's suit. Mm-hmm. You know, it's got the big chest logo.
But you say it's got like the long legs of Andrew's.
The legs are a little longer, and you know, it feels.
Which is kind of like Andrew's
very
suit.
Classic.
And that sounds like a mismatch, like a mashup between Tobey and Andrew's spider symbols.
It makes sense because you know
he would be inspired by them. Yeah.
And
you know, it's almost like this entire time he's been like a baby spider. Like he's had this little spider.
He's got the big spider.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, now he's Spider-Man. You know, he's really Spider-Man.
And then we just end with a beautiful swinging shot.
We've had a really great journey from his introduction in Civil War to now. His overall story arc, even though his trilogy is not necessarily self-contained like Tobey's is, or even Andrew's 2 movies, his overall arc has been so beautiful to watch him growing from what he was in Civil War to now.
Yeah, I really feel like we've grown with this Spider-Man.
We really have.
We've now hit a lot of major points in his life where he's now learned responsibility. Yep. He's grown up.
And knowing that we're going to get a whole other trilogy with Tom Holland as Spider-Man, I could not be more excited about it, especially, you know, if he's going to have this new suit in the next movie. And it's just, it's wild. And I mean, it's...
What a time to be alive.
This is a great time
dude,
to be
Spider-Man fans are eating good. They're eating really good. We got the new Spider-Verse coming out, of course.
Yes.
Which, granted, I thought the movie was overhyped. It doesn't mean I disliked it, but I thought the first movie was a bit overhyped, in my opinion. I know you really like it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
You want to talk about the end credit scenes?
Yeah, let's talk about the end credit scenes.
So
because
Venom and Eddie, they just get drunk at a bar and disappear.
Yeah, they're in the MCU universe, as teased in the end for Venom Let There Be Carnage. And this was... I read the leaks for this scene, and I still don't know how I feel about it, because it's like I'm half hype, but I'm half like, it's weird because they're drunk in a bar and they're asking this dude questions about this universe, you know, talking about Iron Man and the Hulk and stuff, you know, whatever, without going into great detail because we've been talking for a while, but stuff happens, shit gets fixed, and they fade out like everyone else did when they went back to their home universe.
But he leaves.
But a piece of symbiote is left behind. And it's like, oh shit. The symbiote is now, part of it's left in the MCU.
So we're going to get that.
But Eddie's gone. Eddie is gone. He's gone back to his universe, which is weird, which is why I said I don't know how to feel about it because I'm hyped because black suit, symbiote. I can't wait to see it done right.
Yes.
And then, but at the same time, we're not going to have Eddie Brock.
It is interesting. I can't wait to see how they handle the whole situation.
And I was excited to see exchanges between Tom Holland and
really
Tom Hardy,
to
on opposite ends. I get it. This version of Eddie Brock is kind of hard to turn into a villain. Yeah. He's not a bad guy. So it's kind of hard to do that, but at the same time, I was really excited about that. But who knows what they'll end up doing in the future? We'll have to really wait and see. I'm just excited that we're going to get, another crack at the symbiote suit.
Yep. Yes. And then our second, it's basically
it's a trailer. It's a teaser trailer for the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, and it was
for Doctor Strange
trailer.
2. Yes, I mean,
I kind of want them to do this now. Where the last one is just like kind of like a little trailer. For the next movie.
And originally I think they said they didn't plan on releasing that one online. It's just exclusive for if you go see Spider-Man.
Nice.
It's really really cool. Like I was already excited about Doctor Strange 2, but now I'm hype for Doctor Strange 2 because it looks wild. Obviously, we're pulling straight from WandaVision. That leads straight into Doctor Strange 2. Everything that happened in this movie leads straight into Doctor Strange 2. He's dealing with the consequences of what he's done in this movie. He needs Scarlet Witch's help, obviously.
And Evil Strange.
Evil Strange. Evil Strange appears and we see him. Now I gotta catch up on What If because I gotta see what happens, but... It's wild. We get the big tease, Wong, everybody's back for this movie.
We get our first look of America Chavez, I believe her name is. Who is like I don't really know much about her, but I do know she's kind of in her universe. She's kind of a big deal. She's like their universe's big hero. So we finally get the first really good look at her. I know she is part of the
Wanda. We get to see her in costume again, which was awesome.
Amazing.
In the Doctor Strange 2 trailer, there's a scene that plays very fast. We're definitely going to have to watch it again. But you see a jacket that's usually worn by Kamala Khan.
Really? I didn't catch that.
I didn't catch that.
It's literally a frame and it's gone. It's the back of her with her, jeans jacket and the Captain America star.
No, I think that's America because she has a star. She has
so that's supposed to be her.
Yeah, she has a very similar outfit like that. She has a jean jacket with a star on it as well.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Well, Doctor Strange 2: The Multiverse of Madness looks as trippy as the first film did.
If I wasn't,
there's not even more. Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch. Come on.
It's gonna get wild.
It's gonna get crazy.
And isn't Loki supposed to be in this?
There's been talk that Loki is supposed to appear in the film, but right now it's just rumors.
Okay.
And I doubt he'll have a massive role, but there's talk he's supposed to appear in the film. I'd be interested to see how that ties into the Loki show.
Yeah, I still need to watch that last episode.
You haven't finished watching Loki? It's really good. You need to finish it.
That's the movie in a nutshell.
We've been talking for an hour and a half. I know it's been a long video, but if you hung around the whole time, I appreciate it. Obviously, subscribe to my channel and hit the like button because it helps with the whole YouTube algorithm crap. And comment if you've seen the movie. Please comment your thoughts. What did you think of the movie?
If we missed anything.
Yeah, talk about something in the comments that we forgot to mention because so much happens in this movie, and to boil it down, the highlights: Willem Dafoe and Tom Holland's acting were phenomenal. This is the best performance Tom Holland's ever given to Spider-Man. I don't see how there could be any argument about how good he is as Spider-Man and Peter Parker ever again because it's definitive. He's Peter Parker. He is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He brings it all.
If he's not your first, he's damn close to your second.
I can be fine with if you weren't feeling it for his first two movies. If you're still not feeling it after this movie, you need to ask yourself how much of a Spider-Man fan you really are. Because the dude feels more like Spider-Man than he ever has. So if you're still making that argument, you need to double take. But thank you guys again if you hung out and listened to this whole video because it was kind of rambling and we talked for a while. And stick around for if you like this video. We'll try to do some more superhero related content because I want to break away and do some stuff that's unrelated to Kingdom Hearts. But again, thank you everybody, and see you in the next. You stole my heart of gold.